Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Over the past week, I've been traveling and I spent a little bit of time in the mountains. But when you're at the top of a mountain, you don't have the best signal and your Wi-Fi connection isn't the greatest, so it's probably not a good idea to play GBL, right? Well, your girl here decided it would be a great idea to play some Master League because she really wanted that Stardust. And unfortunately, I dropped a lot of elo. I dropped around 300. But that's okay, we have a lot of time left in the season to climb. After I got back home, I thought I might try some Psychic Cup. Maybe I'd have some luck there, and maybe I would be able to regain the points that I lost during my vacation. And I actually ended up going super positive with this team that I'm going to be showing you guys today. I was in the 2,300s when I dropped during my vacation, and now I'm almost on the leaderboards, which was pretty surprising. I didn't think I'd like Psychic Cup because I've never liked these single type cups. But surprisingly, it's pretty fun. I have to be honest though, the team I'm using kind of doesn't make sense. I'm running Bronzong on the lead with Psyshock in a Psychic Cup. Interesting choice. And I have Rapidash in the back, which means my team is ABA weak to Victini. So yeah, I don't really know what I was thinking, but it worked out. If you are going to run this team, I recommend running it with Galarian Slowking lead instead of Bronzong. I will warn you, it's a little bit predictable, but you will take care of some of the team's weaknesses like Victini. Galarian Slowking has access to Surf and Shadow Ball, which are both going to be super effective against Victini. It's also going to have a better matchup versus Malamar and Rapidash because it can get to its moves a lot faster than Bronzong can. Now, the recommended moveset for Bronzong is going to be Heavy Slam and Payback, but I thought maybe Psyshock could be something that I could grab shields with. I can get to it pretty quickly, and then I can reach the Heavy Slam and throw that. I do require the Payback in some situations, so the Bronzong is pretty questionable. We also have Rapidash, which is one of the best Pokemon in this entire league. It's also my favorite Pokemon, so I'm going to take any chance I get at using this, and I'm going to use it no matter what anyone says, because it's a glorious magical unicorn. And then you have Malamar on the team, which is probably the best Pokemon in this entire cup. This Calamari here will literally be everything except for the fairies. But you guys came here to see some battles, so let's get into the battles. Up first, we have not the best lead ever, but also not the worst. My opponent can bait here. They can go for the Surf or they can go for Shadow Ball. I decided to call the bait and I was wrong. Unfortunately, we get hit with a Shadow Ball, but because Bronzong is quite tanky, we're able to take that, and I'm actually able to grab a shield with the Psyshock, and while we do end up losing lead, we have shield advantage, and Rapidash in the back with shield advantage will do a ton of work. Now I'm going to bring in the Squid, and unfortunately I have to take a Shadow Ball here, and then my opponent swaps out into their own Squid. I should point out that this match was before I TM'd Hyper Beam onto my Malamar. I was running it with Superpower at first, and then you'll see why later on in the video I TM Hyper Beam onto my Malamar. I threw a Foul Play to get him kind of low, hoping that it would put him in Body Slam range with the Fairy Wind damage. Unfortunately, I still don't think it's enough, so I do have to go for that Mega Horn to take him out. My opponent is going to bring back in their Galarian Slowking now, and I can reach a Body Slam right before they reach their move. Actually, we end up CMP tying there, and I do end up shielding my Rapidash because I have a feeling that my opponent has Rapidash in the back. Like I've said, the Galarian Slowking, Malamar, and Rapidash combination is quite common. I said that at the beginning, it was a little bit predictable, so I had a feeling it would be Rapidash in the back. I decided to swap out and catch the Body Slam and bank all that energy I had on my Unicorn because I wasn't sure that a Body Slam would KO his Rapidash from that range. And I also didn't want a CMP tie on Mega Horn because I have a feeling I might lose the CMP. So I bank all that energy, and now I can throw this Body Slam against this Galarian Slowking, and it's gonna be enough to KO, and we take that win. GG's to my opponent. I thought he played that really well. On to the next match, we get a really good lead of Galarian Rapidash into our Bronzong, and my opponent swaps immediately into Galarian Slowking, and I think that this is a big mistake on my part. I stayed in with Bronzong and I tried to get a little bit of energy. Unfortunately, this means that I would have to invest a shield into Malamar in order to win the switch. So being a shield down with the backline that I have is not that great. And for some reason, I am still running Superpower on my Squidward. We managed to take out the Slowking, and I have a lot of residual energy for this Rapidash. My opponent does end up shielding, which is good for us. And then my opponent has to throw Body Slam so that I don't reach another foul play. Thankfully, they don't farm down Malamar, and they don't have a ton of energy stored on Rapidash because Rapidash with energy is very scary. Now my opponent is going to bring in Malamar, and for some reason, I don't shield the Hyper Beam. No one saw that. That never happened. Do you really think I was going to be able to come back after that? No, we lost that match. We lost it pretty badly too. That's okay. Mistakes are made. Apparently I'm living under a rock and I'm not aware that Malamar should have Hyper Beam in this cup. Well, actually, I was living over a rock. I was on top of a mountain. But on to the next match, we see another amazing unicorn lead into our Steel type, and my opponent immediately swaps into Malamar, and I can bring in my Galarian Rapidash. I take a foul play, and then I build up as much energy as I can, and I go straight for the Mega Horn. Luckily, they don't shield, and I'm able to take out their upside down squid. Then they bring back in Rapidash, and they go straight for the Body Slam so that I don't reach a move, and now I'm going to bring in Bronzong. Now, I'm not even going to build up to the Heavy Slam. I'm just going to go straight for the Psyshock because no one expects it in this cup, and my opponent is going to be expecting a Heavy Slam. We managed to take their shield, and if my opponent is running Mega Horn, I actually don't have to shield myself because, like I said, Bronzong is super tanky. So my opponent does end up going for a Body Slam first and then for a Mega Horn. And it's still not enough to take us out. I'm able to reach the Heavy Slam and take out their Galarian Rapidash, and now I can safely bring in Malamar. With 2 shields up, this Slowking is not going to be able to do anything to us, and also Malamar is very spammy. It only takes 5 Psycho Cuts to get to each foul play. We're able to take this win. For some reason, again, I'm still running that superpower. I don't know why I haven't switched to Hyper Beam. But anyways, moving on to the next match, we have Bronzong into Gardevoir. Now, I've seen this Gardevoir lead with Claydol and Bruxish, the fish, the weird rainbow-looking fish. In the back? Is that a YouTuber or a streamer's team? Because I'm seeing it a lot, and like I said, I haven't really been keeping up with Psychic Cup over the past week, so for some reason, this team is very popular. But anyways, we had an amazing lead, and my opponent swapped into Claydol, and I immediately bring in Malamar, and Malamar is going to do amazing versus Claydol. I just have to invest 1 shield, and I leave the match with quite a bit of energy. I'm able to reach a foul play on Gardevoir, and it takes out most of their health. Now, I was wrong. It's not the fish in the back. It's the squid. Of course, we see the squid, but lucky for us, we have Rapidash. And this time, I learned from my mistakes. I know that it has Hyper Beam, and I'm not going to fall for it. So I do shield the Hyper Beam, and I'm just going to go straight Body Slam. I can reach 3 Body Slams, so I don't have to go for that Mega Horn. The second Body Slam will take his last shield, and then this third Body Slam should KO. And my opponent surrenders here. Lucky for us, that was a very RPS game, and we take that win. Don't tell me I'm still running Superpower on Malamar. Come on, wake up. Please, TM Superpower off, put Hyper Beam on. Come on, it's not that hard. Oh, there we go. I woke up. Finally, I had some wisdom to back out and put Hyper Beam on Malamar. Of course it takes like 10 TMs. Oh, there we go. We have Hyper Beam on Malamar now. Finally, we have the right moveset on one of our Pokemon. The other one, the lead, still not the best. And I get a weird glitch here, but this win doesn't count for me, unfortunately. So I go back into GBL. No free win for us. On to the final match of this set, we have Bronzong into Slowbro. This is an interesting match because, yes, I am doing super effective with my fast move, which is a dark type fast move, to the Slowbro, but for some reason, these water guns are hurting so much, and of course, the surfs are going to be neutral, and they're also going to chunk Bronzong. Now, my opponent brings in Malamar, and I decide to go for the heavy slam on Malamar because I want to put him in a range where I can Fairy Wind enough to just throw Body Slam, and that would be enough to take him out. Because I didn't really want to play the bait game. It gets a little bit tricky versus Malamar because these foul plays still do a ton of damage to Galarian Rapidash, so my opponent still has a chance to flip this matchup. However, I'm able to reach 3 Body Slams to secure the win against the Malamar, and now I can go for this Mega Horn versus this Slowbro, and It goes unshielded, we take him out, and then my opponent has Claydol left in the back. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bait with Body Slam, take his final shield, and then I can go for this Mega Horn. And then for some reason, I swap into Bronzong, which is not the best idea. I thought I could farm him down, but of course my opponent's out of move and I don't have any shields left. But it doesn't matter anyways, because once my opponent sees Malamar, they decide to surrender. And that was another kind of RPS game, and we take that win. That was 4 wins in the set, and we get a Genesect to top it all off, a nice little reward at the end. And this should be enough to take us into the mid 2500s. Like I said, I started off in the 2300s because of how much I dropped during my vacation. And actually 2500s right now in this point of the season is pretty high. It's pretty close to the leaderboards. But anyways, moving on to the next match, we see another amazing lead. We have Galarian Rapidash again into our Bronzong. Now this time my opponent is staying in, so I have a feeling they have the high horsepower, which is a ground type move, and that's going to be super effective versus our Bronzong. Now my opponent brings in Malamar. Again, I like to throw that Heavy Slam to get him into a range where my Fairy Winds will do enough damage and the Body Slam will KO. My opponent builds up to that Hyper Beam, and of course I learned my lesson from the previous matches, so of course I shielded. I build up as much energy as I can before throwing Body Slam and taking him out. And then my opponent brings in their own Rapidash. Now I am going to go straight for the Body Slams. Unfortunately, we lose CMP tie, but I do believe that this is only a Body Slam and we live. And this should be enough to KO their Rapidash. It does, and my opponent has the annoying little fish in the back. So now I do have 2 Pokemon left to take it out. However, my opponent has 2 shields left. So what I do here is I bring in Bronzong. I know I can reach the Psyshock, and I expect a shield from him because this fish is pretty squishy. I don't know how to pronounce the name, sorry. So I'm just going to call it a fish. I force my opponent to throw all his energy on Bronzong, and then I can bring in Malamar. All I have to do is reach 2 foul plays. My opponent is running Bite, which is a dark type fast move, but because Malamar is partially dark type, the bites are going to be neutral, and I can easily live an Aqua Tail because Malamar is actually decently bulky. It's not that squishy, and I can reach another foul play and take out my opponent, and we take that win. On the lead in the next match, we see that Galarian Slowking, again really tricky. I have to call if my opponent is going to bait or go straight for the Shadow Ball. I think I'm going to call the bait here. We'll see if he decides to Shadow Ball. Unfortunately, he goes straight for the Shadow Ball. I apparently never learned my lesson. We do manage to take a shield, however, so we are 1 shield up. Now I can bring in Malamar, and I'm going to go for the foul play. Luckily, my opponent doesn't swap out. I don't want Galarian Rapidash to see this thing. Also, my opponent, for some reason, didn't throw a move before I reached the foul play, so he ended up having to invest his final shield, which is really good for us. My opponent goes for a move, and I thought it might be a Surf Bait, so I didn't shield the first one. I shielded the second one, which was the Shadow Ball, and then my opponent is going to bring in Victini. I waited for the Recreate, and then I threw the foul play because 1 foul play does not KO Victini before it gets debuffed, but it will KO after the debuff. And then my opponent has Malamar in the back, and our Galarian Rapidash is lined up with this Malamar. He has no shields left, and this Mega Horn is going to KO a full health Malamar. Again, it's going to be doing double super effective because Malamar's Psychic typing and Psychic typing and Dark typing are both taking super effective from Bug type moves. And then we take that win. We got really lucky with some of the calls that were made. But on to the next match, we have another Galarian Slowking lead. Again, I think this is going to be Galarian Slowking, Malamar, and Rapidash. My opponent this time, instead of staying in, swaps immediately into Malamar, and I can bring in Rapidash. I'm going to go straight for that Mega Horn. Unfortunately, it doesn't land. My opponent shields it, and my opponent built up to the Hyper Beam, but he baits, and he baits successfully. He takes my shield, and now for sure this is going to be the Hyper Beam. He takes my final shield, and I farm up as much as I can before throwing a Body Slam. He is in Body Slam range now, so I just have to go for these Body Slams, and I have a ton of energy built up. However, my opponent has seen that I have Mega Horn and not high horsepower, so he's not pressured to shield. Now, I don't know why I make this play, but for some reason, I bring in Malamar, and I know that he has Rapidash in the back, so this was very risky. If my opponent had Mega Horn and not high horsepower, I would not have been able to reach a move and take his final shield. My opponent farms me down completely with Rapidash, and I can bring in my own Rapidash. I know I have a move stored up. This Mega Horn is going to be enough to KO. However, this was also another really risky play on my part because I wasn't sure that my Rapidash would win CMP versus theirs. And if my opponent had 1 CMP, they would have taken me out because they had a move built up. So I got really lucky that I had the higher attack stat. Now versus the Slowking, my Bronzong can easily live a Shadow Ball and fast move down, and we take that win. That one was really risky. I made a lot of questionable plays, but we got really lucky because of my opponent's moveset and because I won CMP in that Rapidash mirror match. In the next match, again, we see that very common Galarian Slowking lead. My opponent this time is going to stay in. Again, I am going to make the mistake of calling the bait, and I'm going to take a Shadow Ball to the face, of course. By the way, the one time I decide not to call the bait, it ends up being a Surf. But I don't have that match recorded. Anyways, we managed to take a shield with the Heavy Slam. And then I can bring in my Malamar, and I'm going to go straight for that foul play. I'm not going to shield. It ends up being a Surf, lucky for us. I'm going to go for the foul play before my opponent can throw a move at my Malamar, and it takes him out. Now, unfortunately, my opponent has a Shadow Gardevoir in the back, and the Shadow Gardevoir is going to be enough to sweep my entire backline. I no longer have that Bronzor lead. I really needed it. Sorry, Bronzong, not Bronzor. Bronzor is the little one. And because Rapidash is so squishy, these charms are doing so much damage. My opponent has Malamar in the back, so I don't win this either way. I'm still going to try here, though, because I have the 2 shields. However, my opponent actually left with Gardevoir with a triple Axle loaded up. He only needs 8 charms to get to it. So even if I leave with a move here, I still can't win this match. I'll let it play out, though, so I'm going to build up to... Well, I didn't build up to another foul play. I couldn't. And my opponent brings in the Gardevoir. He has the triple Axle loaded. I can't even reach a move on Malamar, and of course, they take us out. GG's to my opponent. That is a very interesting team. It's another iteration of the Slowking with the Fairy and the Malamar team that I've been seeing a lot of. But with a very unique twist, the Gardevoir definitely threw me off guard. But anyways, moving on to the next match, we have Bronzong into Rapidash, another amazing lead for us. My opponent immediately swaps into Malamar, and I can bring in Rapidash. I am going to let this first move go. He didn't build up to the Hyper Beam. I know this is foul play, so I let it go. However, I'm going to build up as much energy as I can. I'm going to go for the Mega Horn, and my opponent decides to shield. Now, I do have to invest my own shield if I want to try to win this switch. So I shield, and then I build up as much energy as I can, CMP tying with him on the Mega Horn. If you know you win CMP, CMP means charge move priority. So if you have higher attack, you win charge move priority over your opponent. If you know you CMP tie with your opponent, it's a good way of building up or maximizing as much energy as you can so that you can leave the matchup with a lot of energy without taking a charged move from your opponent. He ends up having Claydol in the back and quits when he sees the Malamar, and that's another 4-win to get us into the really high 2,500s, which is super close to the leaderboards. They decided to start the leaderboards really early this season, and I kind of appreciate that, but also getting really high up, you get a lot longer queue times, and it gets kind of exhausting waiting for all these games, so I really don't want to be that high up yet, but at the same time, I kind of want to reach Legend and get it over with because I want to run Spice, I want to run some more interesting teams and have a little more fun than just running meta all the time. I also like showing you guys teams that actually work so that you guys can go and use them and you can climb as well. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I hope you guys found it informative. If you use a team and it works out for you, please let me know. Also, if you face me in Go Battle League at any time, feel free to leave a GG's. I really don't mind. If you guys like my video, please consider subscribing, maybe leaving a like. It will help me out a ton. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!